What's up, y'all? This is Hammer here again, back with another video. And today I'm going to be talking about racism. And no, I'm not talking about racism from white people because that's, what everyone expects. I'm talking about racism, anti-black racism, from the Latino slash Hispanic community. And I know many of you guys hearing this are going to be shocked, are going to be, bewildered, like, what are you talking about? Because in the United States, right? When we think of Hispanics, the image that comes to our mind in America is a poor migrant from South America, typically male, who, crossed the border across Central America, trying to look for a better job, look for a better life. Typically, they end up in like low wage, labor centric roles. And so for us, it's like we could never ever imagine that these kinds of people could potentially be racist, right? Especially against black folks. But contrary to popular belief, right? Although a lot of the people who are coming across the border do tend to be mestizos, right? Those of white and indigenous mix, what people need to understand is that in South America, there is a racial hierarchy. And the racial hierarchy in South America is very simple. Okay, you have indigenous people and black people at the bottom, then you have mestizos, and then you have white Hispanics, or as I like to call them, white peninsulares. And in all these, and in the majority of these South American countries, what you typically see is that even though the mestizos make up the majority of the population, the people who tend to run these governments, right? The people who tend to run the societies tend to be white Hispanics. And then when you look deeper, the black Latinos and the indigenous people are typically treated like shit. And so when you understand this, right, and you understand this sort of, racial hierarchy, then you kind of understand why Hispanics and Latinos, although they may have this image in America of quote unquote, being minorities and being oppressed, they have a lot of prejudice against folks who are essentially of darker skin. That's the reality. And many of them, when they come here in the United States, the first thing they want to do is go into black and urban areas, right? And so if you're a black American, if you're a black person in the United States and you're interacting with these people, because they're in a foreign country, because the quote unquote legal status is in question, because quote unquote, they're now quote unquote a minority population, they have to sort of adapt to the environment. And so they, a lot of the quote unquote anti-blacks, quote unquote, colorist mindset they have in South America, that it can't fully manifest here. But it does manifest in many ways if you pay attention. Number one, in these Spanish communities, his Latino communities, they typically believe in what they call bettering the race, meaning that if you get married and have children, the goal is to get with someone who is another mestizo or someone who is white peninsulares or white Hispanic. So typically what happens is that, when they will come here in America, they will tell their kids, especially the Hispanic daughters, right, that, hey, if you get married to a man, okay, you need to get with either a Hispanic mestizo male or a white male. And although we see a lot of images, a lot of, although we tend to see, black men and Latino women here and this, dating each other, what you put into it is that most of the time in these Spanish families, they disapprove of that. They typically are against that. And many of the fights that you see break out between black men and Hispanic men really come down to the fact that they don't want black men to deal with the women. They don't want Hispanic men to deal with black men. Let's keep it real. And many of these Hispanic women also know that if they bring a black dude home to the Spanish family, they could be disowned. Right? Now, some of them, obviously, this is not everyone, right? You're going to have your exceptions here, but fundamentally, there is an understanding within the sort of, Hispanic, Latino culture that, hey, getting married to someone of darker skin is viewed as you going backwards. Number two, if you do decide to get married as a black man or as a black person, right, into a Hispanic household, what you're going to notice is that the colorism and the sort of phobia to darker skin is going to be full on display. See, when you're interacting with a quote unquote Hispanic on the street, you're not going to be able to see these things because once again, you're technically an outsider. But when you're actually, married and you're actually part of these families, you see it front and center. The way they talk about darker skin, the way they talk about, those who quote unquote lighter skin, right? The way they talk to your quote unquote, the way they treat your biracial kid, right? And what you're gonna start seeing in these families typically, right, is that the culture very much tends to place a premium on class and of those with lighter skin. And number three, another thing you're going to realize is that your child may face some, in many ways, discrimination within the Spanish community. If you are a black man and you get married to a quote unquote Hispanic woman, right? 9 times out of 10, the Hispanic family is typically going to be against it. They're going to view it as sort of quote unquote going backwards, right? She's supposed to better the race and get with a white man. But if she is able to kind of win the family over and they accept it, that doesn't mean they're going to accept those kids. And 9 times out of 10, they're going to view those kids quote unquote going backwards. They'll either try to convince the kids to quote unquote marry another mestizo to quote unquote better the race or marry white. And if they can't do that, they'll just they'll literally just classify the kid as another Negro. You get a Negro treatment. That's the reality. Another thing I think we need to understand is that Hispanics, in addition to them having this sort of anti-black racism within the community and them worshiping lighter skin, they also do not believe in this people of color coalition. Because one thing I've been hearing about growing up a lot is this idea that we're gonna have this black and brown. Black and brown is imaginary. That's an imaginary concept. The reality of the situation is that Latinos are in here for themselves. They only join the black and brown coalition because they can use it to quote unquote gain access to civil rights and affirmative action. That's it. By essentially joining the quote unquote coalition, they can classify themselves as minorities, right, and be able to gain access to all those goodies. That's all it is. But they have no real intention of quote unquote empowering black communities. No. And when you had the quote unquote scandal in California, when you essentially had a bunch of Hispanic politicians that was saying all kinds of derogatory things about black folks, everyone was shocked. But I wasn't shocked. I said, this is how they think about black folks behind closed doors all the time. Let's keep it real. This is how they always think about it. They just have a better way of hiding it because they understand, once again, you're not in South America. Yeah, in South America, you guys are used to, quote unquote, degrading black Hispanics, degrading indigenous people, serving, you guys are used to, quote unquote, worshiping white Latinos. But over here in the United States, that's not going to work because over here in the United States, right, the white demographic does not view favorably. Let's keep it real. So you actually have a lower status here compared to when you had your home country. Black Americans, in some ways have a higher status because they've been here longer and they have somewhat institutions with HBCUs and civil rights. Now, of course, white folks are using Hispanics as a proxy class, but that's another conversation. But don't get it twisted, okay? Do not get it fucking twisted. When it comes to Hispanics, they very much believe in Latino power, not people of color power, not black and brown coalition, Latino power. And in my opinion, I feel like the only thing that has really been holding back Latinos from really showing the true colors, in my opinion, is the fact that, number one, a large percentage of them are still illegals. And number two, a lot of the affirmative action and quote unquote goodies they get, right? All of the affirmative action and civil rights they get, a lot of it is really based on the fact that they classify themselves as minorities and they quote unquote play this whole people of color game. If they were to really go out here and make it very well known that their role is to be white adjacent, right? It'll be much more harder to quote unquote make that play. But I believe that, look, you had Chuck Schumer who came out and said that his goal was to essentially legalize, right? The quote unquote 11 million illegals out here in America, which are mostly Hispanics, his goal is to make them U.S. citizens. And you know damn well there are way more than that right in the United States. If Chuck Schumer is serious, if once these Hispanics are able to truly obtain, legal status for the majority of the quote unquote illegal Hispanic population, once we get to a point in which the majority of the illegal Hispanic population is able to obtain any form of true legal status, they will flip so fast. In fact, the first thing they'll start doing is voting Republican. Mark my words. And then they will break away from the quote unquote people of color thing and they will start aligning themselves with white conservatives. Watch. But with that being said, y'all, I'm going to leave it on there. You guys let me know what you guys think in the chat. Like, share, and subscribe. And with that being said, hammer out.